Welcome to Wisdom for Exploit with me, Bola Amore. Today I have with me a beautiful lady, Tinu Williamson Taylor. Today we are going to be talking about living with sickle cell. So Tinu Williams Taylor, an African British woman born in 1963, lives with sickle cell anemia. She was married and has 3 sons and grandchild for now. Tinu has multiple qualifications in science, business, and project management. She works with NHS for almost a decade before moving on to business intelligence and informatics. She currently works full-time with a local authority, delivering business intelligence, supporting services improvement. Considering her health condition, she is aware that retirement is around the corner and looking forward to spending more happy times with her children and the family in good condition. Tinu will be able to share her experience and strategy for living successfully with sickle cell SS disease. Tinu also loves traveling and traveled almost every year in the last 25 years. She enjoys sewing and crocheting. Tinu is guided by the truth that life is not only about how long we live, but also the quality of our lives, our relationship with others, and our legacy. So welcome, Madam Tinu, to this wonderful show. I'm happy to have you. So how are you faring today?
Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone who might be listening or have eventually come across this video. It's nice to have you, and it's nice to have the opportunity to be able to share my experience, and then hopefully it would be of value to 1 or 2 people or more.
Wow. So yeah, today, as I said, we're going to be looking at living with sickle cell. And I know as a female adult or adult, and for, almost how many decades now? 1963, you were born in 1963. So what is sickle cell to those who are out there and does not know what sickle cell is all about? As a scientist and someone living with sickle cell, so if you want to encourage, to explain what sickle cell is all about, to people out there, what is it all about? And even being a scientist.
Sickle cell disease is a Black hereditary condition affecting majority of Blacks living in basically, the western coast of Africa, which is the middle side of Africa, as well as across the globe towards America. So it's a genetic condition that evolved from adaptation to coping with living with malaria, because malaria was prevalent in those areas of the world. So when over the centuries or millennia, the mutation happened and people will now become carriers of the sickle cell traits. And then when these carriers do manage to meet and have children together, the children are likely sometimes to have sickle cell disease, which becomes the homozygote SS. So they would inherit S from one parent and S from the other parent. Every pregnancy has a risk. If the parents are AS and AS, a 25% chance of being an SS, a 50% of being an AS, and a 25% of being an AA. Which is no hemoglobinopathy condition. It's every pregnancy, not multiple children, not the statistics sometimes being portrayed that when you have 4 children, then 1 child will be a sickler. No, it's actually every pregnancy has a probability of being that. So that's my scientific view of it, of training with it. So, and when we talk about the hemoglobin, it's a phenotype, not the genotype. So it's not your blood group AA or AB, O and all that. It is actually your phenotype. and it's genetically just more prevalent within that side of Africa and around that latitude of the globe.
Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. So now, living with sickle cell for decades, how were you able to manage family and relationship?
Before I probably go on to managing family and relationship, I think I probably should say, which probably hopefully to make this information relevant to the young ones. I was born in the United Kingdom in the 1960s. And my parents then, one was working, one was a student, were told, because I had my first crisis when I was 6 months old. That was how early I've been diagnosed. So I wasn't, I was diagnosed quite early. But what they told my parents then was that I had a condition that was common amongst African babies. They didn't give a name, they didn't give everything. So my parents' reaction was, oh God, all these racist comments. How can there be a condition ever that's only for African children? Because that was obviously their own knowledge. That was Africa. Obviously, we're a bit more open now to know that because we are different races, we do have different conditions due to the kind of people we have. There are so many genetic conditions all over the world, depending on your race. So the Caucasians are more prevalent to maybe like cystic fibrosis. I think the Jews probably more common to something called Tay-Sachs or something like that. So we maybe like if you're the other Asian, more Eastern Asian, I think they have a kind of a similar to sickle cell, a thalassemia, thalassemia B or A. Again, these are all genetic mutation, but this time around of the hemoglobin. And again, it might be adaptation towards something there. I'm not sure exactly why the A came aboard. So that started with that. So having known I have a condition, even when I became aware of why do I have pains compared to other people around me, because my parents separated and we were forced to return back to Nigeria. When I was about 6 years old. So my growing up period was actually in, becoming aware was in Nigeria, West Africa. So, and of course the weather is different. Children play outside, children have fun with the rain, children have, things like that, or the sun. So I became aware that I was a bit different. And it wasn't until probably I got into secondary school, started learning about science, or did I become more knowledgeable about what made me different. But since about even as a teenage years, I've been forced to know God and my creator, because it's God I used to call out to please help me with these pains. I happen to be one of the sicklers who I'm not extremely severe, because sickle cell has a varying severity. Some people are terribly affected and some people like me are moderately affected. So I was one of those where I was having probably sickle cell crisis affecting my attendance in school, about a term's worth of school attendance. So I think that pushed me to studying sciences and maths in a way, because I could do that on my own in spite of missing school. As if I probably had done something, I just felt. And I didn't enjoy reading lots of text. I enjoy reading novels. I love the romantic novels, but not text of history and things like that, or lots of literature. I just couldn't memorize or the way the teaching was done in Africa. So hence science, because I know that I just need to solve this formula and get to the end, and that's easy. And so finding a strategy or sending formula. So education went like that. So from there, I became more independent, but also being when I now went on to, initially I thought I was going to study medicine. It was at the last minute I changed my mind.
Wow.
It was at the last minute I changed my mind, because I had the opportunity to probably go to another university compared to the one I was to study medicine, but I changed my mind because I thought that maybe, and I became aware of doing jobs or doing something that hopefully will not exacerbate my condition. So I became aware of doctors having to do a lot of running around, being on call or doing that. So in fact, I had planned when I actually initially went to study biochemistry that I would work in the pharmaceutical industry. It would be similar to office job. It would be, but you would be applying my scientific knowledge towards drug development, food development. It could have been anything around there. That's what initially I planned. But obviously, God is in control. Eventually found myself moving back to England, and such plan does not necessarily directly work easily in England. So that's how I ended up within the NHS. And of course, working in biochemistry, in chemical pathology used to be called then. So doing all the blood tests and researches and, for patients. So I'm aware of patients from the blood side of things, and liaising with some medics when the results have come up is abnormal, making them aware, this is it. And so they can respond timely and take actions. So in that. But eventually I had to leave the NHS for so many other reasons, just because my health when I was younger and the strain of it was not terribly conducive to the demand and the timeliness demand. NHS work was 9 to 5. You couldn't be late. You couldn't do that one. So I went on to do management, a master's in business administration, and to upskill myself so I can go into the business side of things, having been aware that way you could be in control of your time and your work. So with my condition, if I'm not feeling very well in the morning, I can start later. I can work later. I can work if I have to finish a project in the evening. Hence, also having been accredited with Prince to project management. So, and of course, being a business analyst as well. I forgot to say that.
Wow. You got a lot on your plate.
Yeah, I think maybe studying does come to me a bit easier compared to some other people. Yeah. So exactly. So having the opportunity of flexible working environment where I am working, where we talk about being able to deliver rather than clocking in and clocking out, regardless of what you've delivered. It's like whether you needed to write a report, whether I do it on Saturday, I do it at night, I do it in the morning, as long as the report is delivered. Hence, I even sometimes would encourage younger sickle cells when I meet them about career choices that would be more suitable to our condition. Because when you have a career where you say you're window cleaner, sickle should not be doing that.
Sure.
We can't do physical things that much, and we can't be exposed to the elements of bad weather, particularly in the Western UK side of things. So career choices that would help you. I mean, I have a lot of, because having done sciences, having done biochemistry, I have a lot of friends who are actually doctors. That's not saying that I just chose not to, who are, because obviously being in the science class with everybody else. Some are still with us now, and some obviously have moved on to the other. So it's not that sicklers cannot be doctors. You could choose to be doctors, and there's so many other arms of medicine that might be more conducive than running around. That's a bit easier for you. There was a friend who was actually a hematologist, who's gone to meet the Lord now, but he was a hematologist with us. I'm not going to mention he's a he, but he was a very loving man. We understood each other just because we have the common basis of understanding the pain structure, the impact, the severity. But he's gone. So we did have a few doctors of my generation who I've come to meet, and I've gone, had lots, people that we even went to same secondary school, some of them have gone now, some of them are still with us with the same condition. So it's not that you couldn't be, but what I'm trying to say to people is that I feel that maybe sometimes not all office jobs are less stressful, less stress. But because it's not a physical stress, it's almost like it's manageable compared to it's a mental stress you experience in the office environment than being a physical stress of running around physically. Because as we get older, our needs do change as well. Hence the idea of working in a project and management environment does help a bit better than when it's a continuous business need environment. Like customer services, they want somebody to always be at the desk and not being there on time. So even though it's still an office job, employers might not find that conducive, which, employers are there to, obviously, the end thing is to improve, make profits, one of them, but definitely not a loss. So sometimes as a Sickler, we do have difficulty with employers, and obviously the common theme around our community is that our employers are not understanding. But I suppose for me being a business analyst, and like I said, I've been aware of business management, I can see it from the employer's point of view. So I think we need to probably think deep of where can we work, where the situations become a win-win for both parties, where they're having to compromise or work with us because of our situation, because we also have to think about their needs as well. So as we too also need to take actions for our contributions, because if you have a job that you were going to be at a till in Tesco, expecting you to be there, and then you're not there, and then now we have the self-service, but you can imagine the age time without self-servicing, then it means the longer queue, or it means the business feeling bad. And of course, when clients or customers are not having good experience with your service, they might move somewhere else. So we have to think about the bigger picture for even our employers.
Yeah.
And so we're making basically more positive changes for both parties, and it's a win-win is what I'm trying to say eventually. So it's about also thinking about them, what they're saying. And the same thing happened when I had to leave the NHS because my health condition, working in an air-conditioned environment, the cold, in spite of how much I dress warm. And I probably I had young family then as well. So I think I probably was stressed around a lot of things. Eventually had to leave the NHS because it just wasn't. So, and I managed to move on to what I talk about, the business administration management side of things. So we can continue to grow. They are continuously retraining and continue to retrain and navigate yourself to something that it's much better for you, where you are in control of your destiny or your life, with grace, without having to beg and plead and feeling like a victim. Because again, sickle cell for me is, I hope I'm not just going on and rambling on though, because I didn't give you time to talk.
Yeah, that's fine, because I really love the overview of what, because I know, as someone, you've been around for a decade now, 6 decades, isn't it? So
yes.
Yeah, so at least you really understand.
I have been aware of it for at least for 5 decades.
You're really aware, because I was just thinking that, you really know how to navigate yourself. That's why you keep, yes, being a scientist, moving into business and background and all those stuff, and because you've really considered your health, because now you'll be thinking that, okay, what about the day I'm not going to be able to go to the office? There, I know I can work from home, and we know that some occupations you can't really go out there. I mean, you can't have to
work from home.
Sorry, you can't work from home. You have to go out there. So, and because you've got so much experience, you know that, okay, this is my health, and this is about me. Yes, and I have to still be in the workplace. I need to navigate. I need to look for something that need to help me. But what about people? Because what about some sickle cell that doesn't, but they don't know how to navigate, and it's just only one thing they know how to do, or those that are not well educated, maybe because of the challenges they have, because I know sickle cell is a very broad thing. Everybody have their own coping mechanism, you understand? So some people are really poorly, and some people, they can't even do much, and even some people with the sickle cell, they have other medical condition attached to it. Indeed. So what about those that are not really
you are right to ask about particularly the impact sickle cell. I think you mentioned it when you first read my my blog, and I probably alluded to when I talk about my school absences growing up, the impact. So it is very, very true that it's affected the educational attainment of a lot of people. Not everybody is that. Even though I talk about medics with sickle cell who are equally in my class and things like that, or in my school, I talk about that. But they have a lot of medics. Particularly, we live in UK where it can be very cold, and so the cold time seasons of the year, which is a big part of the year. It's almost 6 months. It's been cold since September all the way to April or something. It's cold, really. So you're subjected to the element. So yes, it does affect the education of a lot of sicklers in this country. The impact of that is that their choices or being employable is also limited and affected.
Sure.
Which is a double whammy. And of course, not being employed means that you are economically at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So it's a very severe condition for us. I'm not singing or dancing and saying that it's all fine. I am very much aware of the unfortunate impact of having the condition. Because maybe that's where when I talk to some other people, like for instance, the Sickle Society, where our main drive is how do we promote prevention in the first instance, people being aware of we have this condition as carriers, what are our choices, because it's a good thing to have a sickler and then living with that condition, but is there something we could do in our initial choices we can minimize the repercussion of it? In the United Kingdom, I think the sickle cell population is about 15,000 people, so it's a small, but it's not growing just because as more children are being born, which a lot of children are actually being born recently, more people are dying. So it becomes like a static population. And of course, they're dying from the complications of sickle cell. And the other thing I was going to say when I was speaking earlier is that sickle cell is also like what I would call a social psychological condition. It's more mental health, mental well-being, because it becomes like a why me?
Oh,
why am I unfortunate? And so you're kind of semi-depressed sometimes that if only I didn't have this condition, I could have been a director, I could have been an architect, I could have been whatever your choices. So it's always like sometimes you feel like so it's a big training of yourself, of your mindset. And some of them, apart from training, could be your faith that you anchor to say, all is well, this is what the life you've been dealt with, and this, what do you do with it now? Some of our parents had us not been knowledgeable about the idea of inheritance, and we are a bit more aware age now, and hence we are promoting knowledge and awareness of taking that responsibility, because as a sickler, it's not an easy life. But it's about how best do I manage and minimize the negative impact of the condition. And so when I was saying this, social psychological is because you're already on a low mood or a low side of, particularly if your parents happen to have had multiple children, everybody else is doing well, one way or the other, particularly they were not impacted. So while they were at school, you are, and you are home and you are not able to go out. And even when you become like a older teenager, young adult, they could go to the nightclub and that, if I spend too much in the nightclub, I'm going to pay the price of it afterwards. There's so many things that make you wake up to say, to be aware that you are different. But what I say is that you could also turn it around to say you are different in a positive way. Like for instance, when I said I was studying on my own when I was in either secondary school or university, was turning the time I have, because I couldn't join too many. I did enjoy going out to the discos and all that, but I didn't join too many. The nightclub, was using that time to catch up on my education, on my studies. And I would say the same thing could be where if you were working, is on your downtime to use that time to catch up on your assignments or your task or your projects at work. So yes, it means that you're not able to do so much of that, but it is what it is, really, rather than being a victim. So going back to the impact of education, yes, it is very true that we do have a significant number of us being affected from the lack of education, to lack of qualification, to lack of employment. So you now grow up and you're still having to live on the fringes of not having enough to live on. Most importantly, this becomes significant in when we have to heat our homes and not being able to afford the heating bill. You actually have to stay warm, because you're not working and you're on the benefit or whatever, you're always having to not have enough and having to live on the barest minimum, unfortunately. So even though it's a recognized disability within the United Kingdom, but the difficulty of categorization is that it's such a broad condition, so the government is always having to assess how far has it affected you, or how much has it affected you, rather than because you have this condition, therefore you qualify for this. So it's almost like you have to fight for whether it's the personal payments, I think they call it whatever, people, whatever it is, augmentation income. But regardless, this benefit is still a benefit. It's not the same as when you are in control of your own income, you're able to work, and then we're able to buy better clothes to keep you warm or heat up your environment. And of course, not just heating up, good food does cost a lot of money in this society as well, which just is not helpful. It's cheap, but good food, healthy food, your vegetables, your green are also a lot of money for us. So just staying healthy on the little things. So really, being a sickler is you are starting from a very low level with loads of surmountable mountains to to go through just to survive. So it's a very, very challenging condition to live with. But all I can share from my experience is that it is possible. You can live successfully with sickle cell condition. You can have a quality of life. It might not be as good as somebody else's, but it's good enough for you in spite. Remember, you are starting from a baseline at this baseline. Yeah. So that's all I can say.
Wow. Well, that's really good. I really like that input. Thank you so much. Thank you. So being a mother of three, I know they are big men now. I've met them. They are big men now. So being a mother of three boys when they were younger, how were you able to cope? Even I know you're a career woman, the way you talk, a scientist, a business, this project management and all those stuff. Well done.
And learning as well.
Still learning. So being a mother of three boys, and I know boys a bit, a lot of people say, oh, they have challenges. The boys, they run all over the place. They jump on the chairs and all those stuff. So how were you able to cope? Because there is this lady I met many years ago. And this lady, she expressed her desire to have 5 boys. She said she wants to have 5 boys. She wants to assist the ladies because there are more ladies in the society looking for husband. So she wants to have 5 boys and she wants them to be jumping all over the house. And I remember the day she was saying this, I was looking at this lady. I said, did she really know what she's talking about? Because I have a young, actually, I was a young lady that time. I wasn't married myself. And I remember my younger brother, the way he's so strong, running about the house, pulling down everything in the house. And then I was looking at this lady. I said, 5 boys? You want to have 5 boys? And I think she has sickle cell as well. And eventually she got married, she got pregnant, but unfortunately she couldn't carry the pregnancy. They have to remove the pregnancy and put it in the incubator for the pregnancy to grow, mature. So with you and with 3 boys, I know they are grown up now, with 3 boys when they were boys, how were you coping? What was your coping mechanism?
I have alluded to it that I think one of the positive of sickle cell for me, is I was able to identify the strength of my creator much early on. Like I said, I think I started really praying, being aware of a God who in charge of my destiny since about 10 years old. Because you're taking the medication, the pain hasn't gone away. Oh. So all you find is that God help me, God help me. So you start singing a mantra of God help me. So I would say from that foundation, it's God's grace. Yes. Particularly one of my boys, I'm not going to say which one so that people don't know, was very, very boisterous. Was very challenging. You describe the word of jumping on chairs and doing this and experimenting with things and dismantling things, we could tell, the engineering concepts then. So yes, but for some reason, that's why I have to use, when I use the word grace, God made me to be more or less I call it the bad cop, but in a positive way. Being quite focused, not mixing messages, And being clear of the expectations and the impacts of what this has. Because there's no way I could go round and round cleaning and tidying up, putting things away round and round and round the clock.
Yeah.
So obviously, first of all, was training them as best I can to be independent. I was a few times in the hospital. I was practically going to the hospital when the boys were young, every 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow.
A permanent hospital bag that, ready for when the crisis starts, to the hospital, and where my husband would drive us, drive me or us, whoever, to the hospital when the crisis starts. So I was which at the time where I had to talk about, the NHS employment side of this and the impacts on the services then as well. So it was important that things were orderly, things were less disruptive. Things were so I was almost doing a project management around the house in a way. Things were orderly, things were less disruptive, things were planned. When I have the energy, I definitely cook in bulk. So there's always some food, thank God we have electricity and NEPA. So I could put food in the freezer, buying things in bulk. Everything is ready. Training the children as early as possible of being able to get their cereal. And if mommy is quite poor in the morning, they can pour their cereal, pour their milk, and they can manage to have it there without having to look off a microwave to warm it before, things like that. So at least able to eat. The reason why that's come up is that their dad would have gone to work early. So sometimes I'm just stuck with the children. Mommy is still in pain in bed or something like that. So the children became independent quite early anyway. And of course, training them on just life, things about cooking. We cook as if we're doing a chemistry laboratory, really. Learning about, the evaporation, everything that was coming up, the temperature setting, all those kind of things. So, using that, the thermodynamics, the changing of things, we kind of doing, because being a scientist, obviously, it's just part of, the impact of this on that, what we were told. So, and of course, I was also equally their part-time teacher, making sure that they do their homework, that they have to do their homework. You have to keep them busy, and that the day is productive at one point, because the last thing you want to do is the impact of you being poorly, being negative on their own life achievements in a way. So they needed to have good education. This was also an era where Black children in particular were doing poorly in the United Kingdom. And we had statistics of only 25% attaining the standard GCSE. It was very bad picture then. Yeah, things have changed now, and they'll be saying there's a Nigerian children doing very well as other races, but it was very bad as a Black community at that time. So it was important that that they were not going to fulfill that statistics. So from being young to being boisterous, project managing the house, the best of orderliness, skilling them the best you can, training them the best you can, supporting them the best you can. The bit of the emotional support you could give as they're growing up as well. Can have interaction and conversation. I'm more of a conversation parent of why do you do this? Not just say go and do this, which is one thing with African dads. I just say go and do it. Whereas it's like, this is why you need to do it, because of this, because of that, because of that. So there's a different parenting style in the house as well. I was more of negotiating with understanding that mommy hasn't got enough too much energy to keep on tidying. Why that's the impact, repercussion of this. So hence, but I was fortunate. The dad was very helpful, young, in terms of at least getting them ready in the morning, because I've never been an early morning riser. I will probably do the school drop, and eventually we started using au pairs, and that eased situation much better. And that was only when we had our third son did we start using au pairs. So the first two we didn't use au pair then. It was the same standard of getting ready, driving them to either childminder or that one. I mean, talking about maybe empowering myself, one thing I did tell myself so many even was I was going to learn to drive before I started having children. And it was I've been 1 or 2 times in the bus, and I could see parents, moms struggling with the buggy, trying to get into the bus, and then it's cold, the weather's chilling out there. And I was like, no, there was no way I was going to do this on the child. So I invested on learning to drive to do that one before a child. It's easy to strap a child onto a car seat, go to work, drop them a childminder, than having to change buses and wait for another bus. And so little nuggets like that I used to help myself to make things better where I can. Yeah. And even when they got older, I will never go to the local market on my own. Everybody comes with me. So they're all carrying the carrier bags.
Wow.
So I wasn't pretending to be a superwoman that I'll be lumbering myself with things like that. That is for the family to eat. So I had little things I was doing involving them as well. And of course, once boys are involved, they're motivated, they're happy to help. And they're loving gentlemen now. I'm grateful.
That's really wonderful. You've really trained them well. Even now, they're men and now in marriage. I know some of them are in marriage now, and then now they start thinking about how mommy trained us. So now shopping, they don't sit down there, the wife going for shopping.
Yes, indeed.
Even though they didn't marry someone with sickle cell, I think they know how to treat women, because some men, they just sit down there, they don't even care if their wife has sickle cell or nothing. They're not even ready to help anything. So it's just the woman to be running helter-skelter. So anyone anyway listening to us, maybe you are married to a sickle cell, I think we're learning from Tino. And the way they brought up their children. So it's not about the woman, because the woman is going to, don't say, oh, you're going to go to the hospital, you're coming back, come and meet your housework. Yeah. So yeah, I think with that, I'm just going to go to this question before I go to the next point. Why, I know some ladies with sickle cell, they are very difficult to get into a relationship. With your experience, because I can see you have a massive, broad experience of life, experience of employment, experience of training children, and all that. So, because I've come across some people whereby they said, once I mentioned to this guy, I have sickle cell, that is the end of the relationship. And sickle cell live longer. It's not all sickle cell that die young. And as we said, and I thank God that you appreciate God, it's God factor. Because anyone listening to us, you can't do whatever. It's not even only sickle cell, whatever condition you're dealing with, the challenges of life. Everyone is going to face one or two things. Even within AA, within AS, they don't even live longer than some sickle cell. You understand, at the end of the day, they're gone. But it's not that we're using this to say to sweet talk or something. It's just about appreciating God. And anyone that is in this situation, maybe you're sickle cell, you think that, you can do things yourself. It's just the God factor. Because you can hear Madam Tino saying that, since she was 10 years old, even taking medication, sometimes medication doesn't help. Even sometimes the doctor will do all sorts of things. And the doctor will not even say, we don't even know where else to go. So it's God, because it could be God. I mean, for an elderly sickle cell woman with children and family, that's the grace of God. So with the question now, as I said, I've seen some ladies that they're still single. Even some are in their 40s, some in their 30s. And I know those days many years ago, I met a lady, and I think she's from Africa too, but she has never been to Africa. She was born here. She's a sickle cell. And I was listening to her story. She was telling me that anytime I said to a guy, she has SS, and that's it. That is the end of the road. And this lady, she's so attracted to white guys, the people of color, not even her own color. So why is it that, and some people that your African men and all that is, once they add SS, they pick race. Why is it that? Because SS is not like someone living with HIV, because SS is just a blood condition. You understand that? It's not something that people can, it's not, you can't contact it. So why is it that
it's not contagious? I mean, it's there's no one answer to, and I think I'll probably lead on from a previous talk when I think you concluded my previous statement when you said why the men, although they might have been married to a sickler, sit down there and let the woman do everything. And I was going to probably comment to that before I come to the relationship, that sometimes it's about not probably being totally aware of what they were getting into. And that, not because in our good times, nobody can comprehend how we are in our bad times. It's totally two dichotomy, Here we are smiling, everything is good, but when the pain, particularly depends on where the pain is, it could have been a chest crisis. It's almost like you feel you're dying, and it's like almost like having two different characters can be very confusing for any spouse or any partner. So maybe sometimes where they feel, and so when you now say, I'm a bit tired or I'm not going to be able to do, they probably think you're probably making it up. And that's where the awareness of probably not being really totally, I use the word totally aware of what they're getting into. I don't think it's probably totally done intentionally. There might be some cultural issues with because you and I are in UK discussing something that affects majority of people in another continent with different cultural dynamics, dimension, and everything like that. So obviously in that area, men are Lord, they sit around, the woman runs around. So regardless of the status of the woman. So we are getting to an age of enlightenment about the condition and how best they can, and which is improved so much compared to so many decades ago. But that used to be the story. So leading that one out to your current question now about how do you cope with, we are all beautiful people, whether you're a woman or that. So obviously there will always be that initial attraction. They will always, they will come to you. There is also legacy of stigma being inherited in some cultural or family because of their experience. Every family, like I said, the genetic mutation for adaptation to live within that area of Africa. So we have a lot of people being AS to survive and be strong against malaria. So in terms of proportion, there's more chances of meeting an AS than meeting an AA or meeting an SS anyway. So there's always every one single family that would have been aware of somebody with a condition. Bear in mind when I also started a story where, because my mom said they never used the word sickle cell in Nigeria when they told her, my mom in UK, that I had a condition common amongst African babies. We were talking about 60s, testing probably not easily available or not even available. We don't know. So the idea, but obviously we had names that we gave sickly people back there. And we knew exactly why were they sickly. Every family had somebody who was sickly, who died young, but because everything we tend to do over there is about spiritual basis. Oh, it must be one bad spirit. So we had names of whether it's Abiku, whether it's things like that. True. Yeah, rather than, it's because they were born with the particular conditions, obviously with the high infant mortality. Having done some background research about my family, I'm still going to go to the relationship, but I'm just leading to that.
That's fine.
Being aware and probably what is biased people around relationships while I'm doing this meandering. My grandparents, for instance, on my maternal side, my grandparents, they had, after they had my uncle, they had other 3 boys, Akin, and things, all of that. But they all died in infancy. There was even a particular time that my grandfather had just gone to bury Brother Akinwumi, came back home, and Akin one day had died.
Oh my days.
Back to bury. That was how bad the story of that family was at that time. So you can imagine my grandmother going through so much. So by the time they actually had my mom, they gave her a name around, please rest, I'm not going to say it,
no.
And similar story on my father's side is as well. So these things do run in families because, generally, and so people now become very wary. As by the time they now started knowing there's a name for children or anybody being ill frequently and looking anemic and thin, and because sicklers tend to have a very common feature, not all sicklers but have a common feature, so you can almost identify them, and so they become wary. Sometimes it could be to protect their own emotional health, nobody wants to be subjected of losing a partner so early on. So either being a widow or a widower, nobody wants that. So there's also that fundamental scare. There's also the financial scare. We talk in a society where we thank God for the National Health Service in the United Kingdom. But back there, we have to pay for our medical treatments.
Yeah.
So being a sickler is a very expensive venture. Probably explains why the mortality, the early mortality or the longevity is probably, is hampered over there, because it's a very expensive condition. When you're ill and doctors have to rally around you. It's not just a treatment that we have. One of the treatments we have is blood transfusion. Because you're terribly ill, there's also the complications of being a sickler on our heart, on our kidneys, and things. And we begin to hear on the brain now as well. So people, having put all of those little things, are very wary of, is this really what I want to go through? So even though there's a physical attraction, there's that, I like this person, but everybody have to make informed decisions. So what they have in their own skewed information is obviously these people are affected, which is true. We don't have the intervention we're talking about here now. So obviously they do run a mile. And of course, they also have a family story that they anchor onto. Though this is what killed my dad's sister, or this is what killed my mom's uncle. Or they have a story where they talk about how horrible the experience of that person was, and what, where they were always poorly and really in pain, and they as a family struggle to see their own loved ones struggling, and it's like, you don't wish that on your enemy. So it's not a bad thing when we talk, they're not getting, no, they do. It's just that everybody has to protect our own mental well-being and mind. You don't want to, experience that loss. You don't want to do that one. So hence we have that cultural thing. Things shifts a bit now. It's a bit slow. Yeah, like I said, we are in a situation where we have a better awareness. We know about, I did allude earlier about the social psychological impact of it and the lack of money and everything like that. We have a way, like a welfare helping you be there. We don't have welfare over there. So when you're sick and you're poor, you will be severely affected as well, compounded. Remember that. So here that we're talking about welfare, we still have the disruption to the family dynamics, whether you're always in the hospital, whether you're not being able to work, which is mean that what you could do as a family together to achieve and survive. And in this country is affected, because if it becomes, we've gone from the era of one income earner in the UK that we do need two income earners. It's almost very impossible to have just one income earner in any household where we are in the country now, with how things are. Not necessarily the word we're using, economic, what the climate, whatever they're using now. It's just naturally been difficult to have been in one single income since we left maybe the 70s or whatever, it's or 80s. It's been quite difficult. So hence a lot of women are working, not necessarily because of the women liberation, but it's just that how the world of capitalism has also grown as well. So in terms of the relationship, yes, we do, everybody's attractive, everybody's that one. People get burnt out is what another word that we use. Partner can get easily burnt out, and you'll be like, I didn't sign up for this.
They don't know what they're going through, innit?
It might be, because it's difficult to comprehend how disruptive this condition could be for some relationships or family. So you will have that initial dating, loving. This, everybody meets partners. We're all attractive, so that's happened. You meet boyfriends, you meet that, but it's being able to stay the long haul and accepting that one, and of course we have different mindsets, different dreams, different desires. So, people will cope with you differently. And of course, with sickle cell, it does affect our behavior. We can probably be very short-tempered because we are suffering from the social psychological of, I am the only one, I'm the victim here, I'm the one suffering here. Why don't you understand? So even that one still affects relationship, not just to talk about the other stress and everything like that. So it's just about people not being able to want to deal with the bigger bigger picture. But a lot of people are also fortunate to find people who really understand and never understands. But I have so many sickler friends who are married, happily married. I was happily married, so, life does happen, who really understand what they're getting into, who understand where they're going, it's about being able to, stay the long haul. And that kind of thing. So, and that's it. So, but I wish, and I have a lot of young ones who are equally getting married with the condition, being aware of what they can do to manage the situation. For instance, I haven't necessarily fact proved this, but where ASs are marrying, but they can choose the fetus, the fertilized egg of a baby that hasn't got the SS, so it'll be an AS or that one. So I heard that opportunity is very common in America now. It's obviously it costs a lot, but at least that option is there. So when people genuinely feel that we love each other, why are we not marrying because of this so-called that? People even have options of whether you want to even adopt, to still continue to be a family. So the view is slightly different from where you and I were coming from, the African concepts, and not having the wraparound protection around families, not having that one too. We have some wraparound here now. The children do this thing slightly differently.
Wow. Wow. That's a lot, isn't it?